The new Eddie Hearn is the old Frank Warren. They've literally switched roles. It's like the film Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd from back in the days. The old Frank Warren was out of touch with the public and he was inaccessible. Unless you worked for one of the major TV networks, mainstream newspapers or boxing magazines, then it was extremely difficult to get credentials for one of his press conferences or shows and damn near impossible to get an interview with him. He was also completely absent from social media. His shows were on some obscure channel that very few people watched. He hired all his mates to be presenters and commentators, and most of them were rubbish. Loads of his fighters jumped ship. He'd often get bitter and start slagging him off straight away for doing so. He actually sued some of his fighters for trying to leave him. And as far as he was concerned, everything bad that happened was somebody else's fault and never his own. His reputation was in the mud, his company was in the red, and it was all going Pete Tong. Then along comes the old Eddie Hearn, who was the antithesis of all that. He made himself accessible to everyone. Literally, any Tom, Dick, and Harry with a YouTube channel and 100 subscribers could turn up to a Matchroom public workout and get an interview. And if you couldn't get down to one of those, you could always talk to him on Twitter. He understood the power of social media and he took full advantage of it. His shows were all on Sky, the biggest sports platform in the UK. He had an easy come, easy go attitude with fighters, often dealing with them on a fight-by-fight basis with no long-term contracts. If they left him, he would wish them well and tell them that they were welcome back in future. He had a huge stable. He was signing all the new talent. He had virtually the entire heavyweight division on lock, and he was filling out stadiums. That was the old Eddie Hearn. The new Eddie Hearn barely does interviews outside of Kugan Cassius and Charlie Parsons. He actually refused to answer any questions at all in the press conference immediately after the Ben Eubank fight was cancelled. His shows are on an obscure channel that very few people watch, just like Frank Warren's shows used to be. He hired a load of his boring mates to be presenters, just like Frank Warren did on Box Nation. His fighters are all leaving, the same as what happened to Frank Warren. He started getting snidey and slagging them off, just like Warren used to do. He started suing fighters who tried to leave him, just like Frank Warren used to. And of course, everything that goes wrong is someone else's fault, never his own. Can you not see what has happened to you, Eddie Hearn? You've become Frank Warren, and Frank Warren has got his act together and become Eddie Hearn. Now it's Frank Warren who's more accessible. Now it's Frank Warren who's on the bigger platform. Now it's Frank Warren who's signing all the new talent. Now it's Frank Warren who's got the heavyweight division on lock, doing stadium fights. Obviously, I'm exaggerating a little bit. It's not an absolute like-for-like, one-for-one comparison. The new Eddie Hearn is not exactly like the old Frank Warren, and the new Frank Warren isn't exactly like the old Eddie Hearn, but they have definitely swapped attitudes to some extent, as well as positions. Is Eddie Hearn actually aware of all this and the truth about why it's happened to him? Or is his head so far up his own backside that he's completely in the dark? Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.